Hey everyone, welcome back to Ragtag Stacking. Today's video I want to talk a little bit about the Federal Reserve and what exactly has been going on there recently. And yeah, I fully admit before I started stacking silver, the Federal Reserve was a bit of a blind spot for me. I didn't know too much about it. I live up in Canada. I live in Toronto, so I did know of it as a thing. I didn't know too much specifics of it. I had no clue whether it was a government organization or not. And, it was just one of those things I didn't have too much knowledge of. But yeah, like I said, once I started stacking silver and trying to educate myself a little bit on the subject, the Federal Reserve kept popping up in articles and other people's videos. And I quickly learned that, it's a pretty shady organization. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of accountability that's ever taken by the Fed. They don't seem to care too much about decisions that will help or benefit the American people. They don't seem to think about the American people at all when they're making decisions. Just using Jerome Powell as an example here, it seems that a lot of the decisions that he's making is more thinking as a politician rather than trying to make the best decision for the people, of America. It just seems like, the decisions are made so that he can keep his job. But you kind of feel weird for, ragging on someone for trying to keep their job. But if their job description is one thing and the way you're trying to keep it is another, then I really don't think you should keep your job. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump onto the computer here and show you this article that goes over some of the scandals that they refer to it as in this article, some of the scandals that have been going on at the Federal Reserve. Okay, so this is the article here. It is on moneymetals.com, and the title is the biggest Federal Reserve scandal. So just going right in, following revelations that the Federal Reserve officials made trades in financial assets while the Fed was taking extraordinary efforts to stimulate the economy, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell ordered a review of the Fed's ethics rules. Okay, so I clicked on that little revelations link that they had there. So this is the one of the scandals that they're talking about. It goes a little bit more in depth for this particular one. I'm going to continue reading the other article because it goes into other, scandals and things that the Feds have been doing. And, this goes in depth for one particular one. So if you do want to read more about this, I will leave a link in the description to both of these articles. But this is the one that they're referring to in that initial, the first paragraph there. While these trades appear problematic, they pale in comparison to the biggest Fed scandal, the Fed's impoverishment of ordinary Americans, enrichment of the elites, and facilitation of the government debt and deficits. So, of course, they're blaming everything on the pandemic for the Fed's increased asset purchase last year. But it says, however, the Fed actually started ramping up this money creation activities in September 2019. So obviously that is a fair bit before March 2020 when everything sort of popped off. This is well in advance of that. When it began pouring billions a day into the repo market, which banks use to make short-term loans to each other in order to keep repo market interest rates low. So basically they're saying they were using the pandemic as a convenient excuse for the Fed to do more of what it was already doing. And it says now the Fed is using the limited reopening as a scapegoat to raise prices. And it says, of course, anyone who understands Austrian economics, I actually didn't know that was a particular thing. I might sound extremely ignorant and dumb right now. But yeah, Austrian economics is apparently something that is meaningful. I don't really know what that is. But it says anyone who understands that the rising prices are a symptom, not a cause of inflation. So I understand what Austrian economics is saying here. I just didn't know that the term Austrian economics was a thing. It says inflation is the very act of money creation by the Fed. So I just skipped down a little bit because they kind of just went a little bit on and on about the inflation stuff that everyone's talking about. And that's not really why I want to talk about this article. But so continuing down here, it says other beneficiaries of the Fed are big spending politicians. The Federal Reserve's purchases of federal debt instruments keeps the federal government's debt servicing costs manageable. This is why, despite Chairman Powell's recent suggestions that the Fed will soon begin tapering its purchases of Treasury, the Fed is unlikely to significantly reduce its purchases of Treasury treasuries or allow interest rates to significantly increase. So yes, it seems Powell is acting more as a politician with some of his decisions rather than someone who is supposed to have the the interest of the American people at hand. That's what a lot of people think his decision making should be based on. But obviously here it's his own self-interest continuing on. And that further goes on here where it's Powell is unlikely to upset President Biden and Biden's congressional allies as long as progressives are urging Biden not to reappoint Powell. So right there you can see any decisions that have Biden involved in it are going to be compromised because he doesn't want to rock the boat any further when people already have Biden's ear that don't want Powell in his spot. He's not going to try and muddy the waters anymore. He's going to want to make life with the Biden administration as easy as possible. He's going to make sure any actions or interactions with Biden, he's going to want to make sure he's on the right side with him. So whatever that is, whether it's good or bad for the American people, he's sort of politicking just to keep his job here. So that's unfortunate that a lot of these decisions are being made to save his own ass, it seems like. And then I talked about this before. It was another major scandal involving the Fed is Congress's refusal to pass the audit that the Fed bill and let the American people know the truth about the Fed's operations. Audit the Fed authorizes the Government Accountability Office to audit the Fed's dealings with foreign governments and central banks. The Fed's discount windows, operations, reserves of member banks, securities credit, interest on deposit, and open market transactions. Audit the Fed would finally reveal the truth about the Fed's operations. So again, this is a thing that people want to see. They want to know exactly what's going on, with this extremely secretive organization here, the Federal Reserve, and they just refuse to do it. They're not going to do the audit on them. And if I were in their shoes, I'd be pushing back as hard as I could to not open up the books either. I'm sure they have some things in there that they want to keep closed, and the people that they are in bed with and that they are, making sure they are keeping happy, I'm sure they want as little information out as possible on the Federal Reserve. So yes, that's the article that I want to show you here. Like I said, I always leave a link in the description if you do want to read over it again. And like I said, I did click on that Revelations link for the other scandal that they were talking about. And I'll leave a link to that because it goes more in depth on one particular scandal that they were talking about. So there you go. That is the article there. I'd like to hear what you guys think down in the comments there. I know from other videos that there are not a lot of Federal Reserve fans that watch my videos, as I said, judging by some of the comments that I've seen before. I have made videos in the past that we're talking about that suggested full audit of the Federal Reserve, and that got a lot of really funny comments talking about the Federal Reserve and I wouldn't go as far as hatred. I don't think a lot of people have that strong of opinion of the Federal Reserve. A lot of people really, really dislike the Federal Reserve. And as a Canadian up here, I can kind of view it from afar. It's not directly affecting me in my day-to-day life as much as it is for people that live in America. But living up in Canada, I know that a lot of things that happen in the States will indirectly affect things up here in Canada. So yes, I'm fully expecting the people to come out railing against the Federal Reserve, but I would also like to hear from people who actually like it. If anyone out there exists that actually likes the Federal Reserve and what they're doing, I'd also love to hear from you in the comments. But don't get me wrong, I do get a good laugh out of some of the venting I see from people in the comments whenever the Federal Reserve's brought up. But anyways, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you come back for the next one. Thank you.